What's the meaning of this body?
The meaning of this body.
Because of this body, we have forgotten our true nature.
We have forgotten it more because of this mind than of this
body.
What's the meaning of this body?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic situation. Consciousness manifesting in a human body is a great potential. Basically, all is one. There is that essential oneness. But in that oneness, there are myriads and myriads and myriads of beings. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The trouble comes when we create an image about ourselves and that sense of separation. But prior to that, there is a being connected with the whole rest of existence, all one and yet unique, has its own unique flavor in that all oneness. Now that being sometimes decides it wants to unfold a little faster and then takes the trouble to get human, for example. And we, in the human state, we have something very special. Like the dog has also consciousness, has also a body, has also feelings, has also some thoughts. Yet the dog functions instinctively, doesn't think about it. So the dog consciousness will be a certain level. Some are more intelligent, some are less intelligent. Some have maybe a bit more intense consciousness, some less, but still it's a certain limit and the dog will just live in it. But we have something more. Our consciousness is self-reflective. Instead of simply being instinctively conscious, we can be conscious of being conscious. Now, this opens up two things that for the dog is not there. We can create a hell for us like the dog is not capable of doing. If we, instead of bringing that consciousness back to the source, to itself, but create that image, and then once that image is created, we have the tendency that everything turns around that. From the moment we wake up till we go to sleep, I, me, I, me. And all the trouble that comes along with it. But if we learn not to do that and bring the attention back to its source, then consciousness within a human body has a potential, it's simply staggering. There's practically no limit to it. So you can, in a human form, accumulate something very precious. Essentially, it remains the same, and yet at the same time, in spite of that all oneness, there is something unfolding. The two traditional teachings which seem to be opposites, one is you are already dead, nothing happens ever, you just return to what you are, nothing ever changes. And then the other, who talks about evolution and unfolding, that seem to be opposites, but both are simultaneously true. They are not opposites. And in a human form, that possibility is there that something enormous can grow. Actually, we are forced to grow as humans, even if you have never a spiritual thought in your whole life. Just that human situation just living day after day. Every morning you have to get up again, start the story all over. And where your body is, there is your consciousness, like it or not. Have to face all the situations, whether you like them or not. A moment it's pleasant, a moment it's not pleasant. There's always that struggle between pleasure, unpleasant, pleasant, unpleasant. It creates a tension that forces us, without our being aware, to accumulate something very precious. And everybody who comes to this world goes out of this world much richer. But as long as we are going through our life half asleep, just being pulled along by the current of events, it's a drag. It's a painful story. When one hits the head, always left, right, bang, bang, it's painful all the time. It need not be like that. If we learn to bring the attention back home, it's like we are stepping out of that current of events. And from that position, it's like you learn to stand detached and on top of it. And then there is an intensity that is so far greater there to your every moment than when we just go half asleep through our life and being pushed along by whatever comes along. The purpose of the human body is that there is some tremendous, very precious unfoldment going on.
I see only this is some fear structure, fear, tension, fear.
You see only, it's a good fear structure. Of course, all the emotions, they are there. The vital energy plays in the body and it creates the emotions. But you are that which makes the emotion possible. You are not the person who is afraid. You are that who is making that experience possible. As long as we are totally identifying with that, then we are slaves of it, and it just repeats itself over and over and over and over. Same stories with little change in the scenario, just keep on repeating themselves. So, if fear is an issue you are struggling with, then when the fear comes, try not to fight it. Try not to immediately put up your breakers and resist the fact that the fear comes, because there the struggle starts. Sometimes you may control it, sometimes it's overwhelming you. Sometimes you may control it, sometimes it's overwhelming you. And even if you control for a moment, you let go of the control, whoop, it comes back. So, have the courage to not be afraid of being afraid. That when it's coming, acknowledge, okay, there it comes again. But instead of getting completely absorbed in the situation that produces the fear, try to just watch what it is doing. Start on the easiest levels. Start to watch what is happening physically when that fear comes. Let it happen. Let it come. And then watch what it is doing to you energetically. The more you're capable of watching, the more you also become aware, okay, the fear is there, it's doing its thing, it's not nice, it's not fun, and yet there is something there that is watching. There is something in you that is absolutely not affected by it. No matter how stormy it is on the surface, there's always that aspect that is not at all touched by any of this. Aware of it, in a way eagerly experiencing it, and yet completely unattached, unconcerned. Learn to bring the attention back to that. You cannot, you can fight emotions on their own level, but it's an endless war. Sometimes you get on top, sometimes you get overwhelmed. It never stops. Because when we fight the emotions on their own level, we also strengthen them. You feed life energy into them. Learn to step out. And even if for a moment you are completely overwhelmed and you forget, eventually you cool down again, brain starts to function again, and then when you remember, there, instead of somehow keep on feeding it, keep on nourishing it, there you turn your attention around, bring it to that sense of presence, and just watch. Maybe it's already gone, but watch what still is happening in the body, what still is happening energetically, and learn to relax. Instead of fighting it, learn to relax. If fear comes and you don't fight it, then it's not even a bad experience. It can be quite fun experiencing fear. After all, everybody knows it all over the globe. People are looking for that kick of fear. Why would anybody go on a roller coaster? You go, and you enjoy that moment of fear because you are quite confident that nothing is going to happen. All the action movies, it's playing with that. People sit on the edge on their chair, knowing that they cannot really get in the thing, and yet the emotions come, and then fear can even be enjoyable. I'm not saying you should now start to desperately enjoy fear, but learn not to be afraid of fear. Learn, instead of fighting it, instead of resisting the fact that fear is there, accept, okay, there it comes. And then, instead of trying to deal with it on its own level, step out. And even if you can stay only a few moments, and there it sucks you again in, those few moments are very precious. Then you try it again, and you step out again. And gradually that collects its own momentum and gets stronger and stronger. Then eventually it will get stronger than the habit that fear can overwhelm us like this and can be a problem. Still, it will be there as long as you are living in a human form. The potential for all emotions are there, and sometimes they are very useful. If you come at the road and the bus comes, it's very useful to have that moment of fear and step back. If you come at a precipice and that reaction, it's very useful. There's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, we have the habit, when emotions come, we hook into them and feed them, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and unmanageable. So instead of trying to willfully reduce them, just try to step out of the way. Bring the attention back home. How you are doing it, do it the way you are doing anyhow, your meditation. If you are doing self-inquiry, you can inquire. But who is experiencing the fear? It's not a question that has an answer, it's just one way of catching the attention and bringing it to the now, to that sense of presence. Or if you don't feel like doing self-inquiry, when you see, if you learn to be more alert, then you become more earlier and earlier aware when an emotion comes, before it's overwhelming. And when it comes, maybe you can just, instead of getting into the habitual routine of getting all tense, not wanting the fear to come, and then inviting in that way the fear to come stronger, and then fight it, and then make it stronger and make it stronger. Instead of that, you just redirect your attention to something else. You center, and you breathe, and you relax. And then let the fear come, play its game, and let it go. Even strong habits, if we learn at least to attempt not to get just completely helplessly overwhelmed by them, then gradually that power is reducing, and finally they lose their grip on you. And if a situation comes, you completely lose it, then never mind. It's gone, it's finished. You come out of it, and you renew that intent that you don't want to be a slave of it. And you may decide, okay, next time I'm going to be more alert. Next time I will try not to get sucked into the old habit. The situation comes, and there, oops. But you come out of it, and there you can do two things. You can berate yourself and think, oh, I'm never getting anywhere, in spite of all the years of meditation, in spite of this, in spite, and beat yourself up. Or you can just accept, okay, it's still there, some more work is needed, but the situation has already passed. So what? It's gone. It's finished. It doesn't exist except as a memory. We always keep the past alive, make it alive, give it a life that it hasn't any right to have. For the past is just memory. There's only one point ever. You're touching reality. You're touching life. And that is now. All that is gone is a totally different category. Even the moment ago, it's just a memory. The moment to come, it's an expectation how it could be. But there is something totally different right now. That living, bubbling quality of life is there. But then, when something has gone, especially when there were strong emotions, then we keep on feeding those emotions. We hook into that situation and make that memory alive in a way that it doesn't deserve to. And our life force is being drained out of us. And we are missing that beauty of existence now, that bubbling, joyous beauty of life that is always there, here, now, if we simply give it a chance to come to the surface. So don't worry about what has happened if it got you again. Okay, you accept it's still there, it still has its force. Renew your intent not to get into the old habit when the fear comes, to get completely sucked in, fighting it, struggling against it, but intend that when the situation comes again, you at least attempt to redirect your attention. Step out of the way of it. Bring it to the present. Be consciously conscious now and learn to relax in it. And gradually it becomes easier. And gradually you you catch situations earlier and earlier. And eventually you will be able also in the midst of the situation not get swept away. But actually, right, then you have the freedom that I told him before. Then you have the freedom whether you want to react or not. Sometimes you may decide the reaction is totally appropriate and react. But often you may just like step out of the way and passing like a breeze, leaving not a trace.